to Mo's Backyard Barbecue and Grill. I am Mo. This is my assistant Moxie. Today we're going to smoke a couple of pork butts. The thing I like about pork butts the most is there's a lot of room for error. As long as you know your smoker and take your time, you will have no problem getting a great quality product.
Using paper towels, I pat to dry the meat. I don't bother washing the meat, I just go straight to patting it dry. I then take my fillet knife and trim off any loose meat or fat not firmly attached to the main cut. I also cut out arteries and remove anything that doesn't look good or seems out of place. I bought this pork butt from Costco. For the most part, the meat is well trimmed before packaging. I don't have a lot to remove. I use regular yellow mustard as a binder for the SPG and my rub of choice. I don't want to go too heavy on the mustard as not overtake the flavor, but applying just enough to lightly coat the entire surface of the meat. Found the injection recipe on the Spruce Eats. All I do is inject a small amount in all different parts of the meat, especially at the top since the fat cap isn't that heavy on this cut. This will help slow the heat during the cook and further break down the tissue, making it much juicier when you get to shredding it. I also mix my own SPG, and I will put the mix I enjoy in the description below, as well as linked to the injection recipe. For the SPG, I do a light to moderate coat on the meat and rub it into everywhere possible. I also add mustard and SPG to the meat I cut off from the butts. These are my burn ends. These allow me to sample the rubs while large pieces are still cooking, so I get an idea of how the product is going to turn out. And my dog appreciates taste testing too. For the rubs, I'm keeping it simple by using off-the-shelf flavors. First one up is Three Little Pigs' Touch of Cherry, which is one of my go-tos. I like to keep this in the spice rack. For me, it's a nice balance of tang and sweet that I've tried on many meats and I haven't found much that doesn't work with. It also isn't ridiculously strong, so you can rub this stuff in as heavy as you want. Smell and taste are not overpowering at all. The second rub I picked up, passing by the seasonings at Walmart, and wanted to give it a try since I hadn't seen it before. Watkins Maple Bourbon Rub. The first thing I noticed was the consistency. It was thinner than the other, almost like table salt, which could be good for coating the meat. Like the first rub, the smell and taste was pleasant, not too strong. Using the remnants of the collective rubs in the pan, I coated the burnt ends generously. Afterwards, I tightly wrapped the burnt ends and pork butts in plastic wrap to marinate overnight in the fridge. I try to keep them wrapped up as tightly as possible, keeping the juices pressed against the meat. Some choose not to do a marinade overnight, but I've never made a bad batch of pulled pork doing it this way, so I guess if it works for me, I'll keep doing it until I find a better method.
About 34 degrees, about 8 in the morning here in Georgia. We're getting ready to fire up the smoker to cook these pork butts. It's going to be a good smoking day. No rain. It's going to be mostly cloud or mostly clear. We're looking at a good day. So I'm going to show you how I set up the chimney and how I set up the smoker.
I like to keep both briquettes and lump coals around for smoking. I fill the bottom of the chimney with briquettes and top off with lump. Using a wax cube, I'll fire up the chimney, and in about 10 minutes, it'll be ready to put in the fire basket.
Now we're going to reload the smoker with wood and coals. So I like apple and I like hickory.
I'll load the wood chunks in the fire basket at the bottom and line it with the briquettes. Putting the hot coals on top should heat up the coals and make the wood smolder and produce a nice smoke flavor. Since I have a lot of smoking chips, I'll use apple and hickory chips in a steel firebox so I can use those up. I was going to put the chip box at the bottom, but I later decided that I'll put those directly on top of the coals. I don't expect them to last a long time though. I got the diner preloaded with some briquettes, as you can see. I also got my pan under it because I don't have a landing yet, which I'd like to do on the bottom of my porch so I can put my smoker there over concrete so I don't spill hot coals and, burn my porch. But what's done is done. So I got this from my local box store, just as a temporary measure so hot coals won't just fall on the ground willy-nilly and I can get them out quickly. Getting a little later, getting a little warmer. Getting ready to put the coals in the smoker. I want to talk about some of the tools I plan on using today. I want to move coals around. Got my old pair of tongs. When I want to clean out some ash or move a lot of coals around, got this tool. If I'm having trouble keeping temperature, or in my case, with right here, having trouble getting the chimney going, got my fan. Don't have the greatest airflow here, so it helps to keep the smoker going at high. When I want to get the smoker at high temperature quickly, I can put it right to the end, right to the vent, push air through it. Got my fire gloves. Well, yeah, you can say I'm going a little overkill with the fire gloves, but I've been burned. I got burned last week. I wouldn't recommend it. I got my barbecue stuff. This is only about 20% water, and it's 40-40 mix of apple juice and apple cider vinegar. I won't be using that immediately. I'll be using that about 3 hours into the cook. I also got my Inkbird. Right now it's reading 55 degrees, which is about right for the inside of the smoker. Yeah. So in a few minutes we're going to be putting the coals on, waiting for it to get temperature, and we'll be throwing the meat on. Just saw me throw the coals on. Now we're waiting for a good temperature and waiting for the smoke to kind of calm down a little bit. This is a little bit of a dirty smoke for me. I want to wait till it's nice and bluish, clear coming out. So we'll give it a little while at good temperature. Right now we're sitting at about 127 degrees according to the Inkbird. So when it gets to about 250 or so, it should give us enough time to put the meat in there and not lose too much and then opening the door. I want to open the door as little as possible. I'll then remove the meat from the fridge, getting ready to put them in the smoker. I plan on using my Inkbird probes, so I will find the densest part of the meat I can and try to get the probes in a good place where they aren't giving false readings. So we're about in hour number 2 right now. We're not getting the greatest airflow today, so I've had the fan set up and got it going intermittently. We're sitting at a good temperature. We're sitting at about 239. We're just gonna keep going, and I'm gonna have to refill it within the next 30 minutes or so, so I already got another chimney going. Well, let's just keep up with the temperature and see how it shakes out. After about 2 or 3 hours, I'll start spraying the meat every 45 minutes to an hour with apple cider, apple juice, and water mix, also known as my barbecue stuff. Don't mind the chicken in the smoker. It was an afterthought that I'm still experimenting with. It was good, though that's a video for another day. So I just reloaded the smoker. We put some extra hickory and apple chunks in there. I also put another box of hickory and apple chips. Now we got a good temperature going on. We're sitting at 226, which is right where I want to be, between that and 250. I'll even let it go 275. Meat's sitting at about 100 degrees internal right now. The goal right now is make sure it's got a good bark before we wrap it. It'll hit the stall about 165 to 170 roughly. That's when we're going to pull it off, wrap it in foil, put it right back in the smoker, and let it cook on to 195 to 205 until it probes like butter. It took roughly 5.5 hours for the first pork butt to hit the stall at 163 degrees, so I went ahead and pulled it off the wrap. I got 2 sheets of aluminum foil laid out overlapping about halfway over the other. I use my barbecue stuff to spray the aluminum sheets and place the butt in the center. Starting closest to me, I fold over the top of the meat, wrap the sides up, making sure I'm keeping the foil as snug as possible, and simply rolling it over until it's completely covered. The goal is to wrap the meat as tightly as possible, being careful not to break the foil, though I will break the top a little to reinsert the temperature probe. The second pork butt hit the stall about half an hour later at 166 degrees. I went ahead and wrapped that one and put it back in the smoker. Three hours later, the pork butts both hit 195 degrees at the same time, which is when I started probing the meat with a skewer. First piece probed like butter at about 203, while the second piece probed smooth at 201. It was time to rest the meat. Keeping them in foil, I pulled the probes, wrapped in a towel, and placed in a cooler. I want the temperature to slowly come down to about 160 degrees internal to let the juices really settle in the meat, and the extra weight is always well worth it. The moment has arrived. After about an hour and 20-minute rest, it's time to shred the meat. Target temperature I'm looking for is about 160 degrees, and the first pork butt checked hit an internal temperature of 161 degrees. And the big reveal comes up, taking it out of the foil, and wow, I gotta say, I've never done a pork butt this good before. Whether it's the Dynaglow, whether it's the rub I use or the method I use, I can't decide. I can't figure out which one worked out the best. I'm very happy with the end result, and I cannot wait to do another one. I hope you enjoyed the video. Really, I hope you learned something from it. If that's what you're here for, or if you're just trying to see another take on how to smoke a pork butt. Either way, I hope you enjoyed it. Please do this yourself. You won't regret it. Thank you so much. Want some?